Well, as Indians, we love our food. We love our dosas and our biryanis and our tea. We like samosas and we like jalebis at weddings and festivals. It's part of who we are, how we celebrate, how we greet each other, part of our culture and our history. But it's these snacks that became the center of a national health debate this week. And that's what this video is about. We're going to talk about what really happened, whether the government is banning jalebis, are jalebis as unhealthy as cigarettes, and where all of this came from. So before I get to it, I also want to remind you to quickly like, share, subscribe, and support us financially also if you can through the membership or the super chat feature. At the end, we'll talk about the actual debate between you and me as to what should really happen going forward when it comes to our street food and, of course, when it comes to packaged food. It started on the 21st of June when the Union Health Ministry issued an advisory. It was a letter that came out, not a ban, not a directive. It was asking government offices to install visual boards like these ones in cafeterias and lobbies called sugar and oil boards, warning people who are buying food in those cafeterias about hidden fats and excess sugar in food. I would quickly want to give a shout out to food farmer Revan Himansingha, who is an influencer who deserves significant credit for sort of mainstreaming the national debate around sugar consumption and food labeling, which has led to this point where we're having this conversation today. Now, the letter was really about making people more aware of what they're eating, but the headlines that came out of that letter said that samosas and jalebis will get warning labels, like how we have a warning label on the front pack of cigarettes. The ministry then clarified and said this is an advisory, not a directive. It does not target India's rich street culture. And that happened because health experts began to debate. So, for example, Dr. Amar Amale of the Cardiological Society of India said that sugar and trans fat, and he was quoted in the Times of India, he said sugar and trans fat are the new tobacco and people deserve to know what they're eating. And so he supported the labeling idea. Rituja Dwikar hit back. She's a nutritionist. She said, Samosa and jalebi ne aapka kya bigada hai? She also said that they should start with ultra-processed packaged foods, colas, chips, cookies, not homegrown snacks, and that is where the target should actually be. And that's a really interesting argument because ultra packaged foods not just have sugar, salt and fat and are made to seem healthy. So when you eat biscuits, it's suggesting that, oh, this is a healthy thing to eat during your tea, but it also has additives, synthetic colors, emulsifiers. It has preservatives that could be harmful to your health, your metabolism, your gut health, and so on. But where is this argument about being unhealthy or consuming unhealthy food coming from? Let's take a look at the numbers, right? Childhood obesity in India has risen 126% in the last 15 years. Adult obesity has more than doubled from 2021, where it was 18 crores, up to 45 crore people in 2050. And obesity costs India to treat because it leads to diseases that winds up putting pressure on our healthcare system. So in 2019, India paid close to $29 billion treating diseases that arose out of obesity, and obviously that is increasing as well. So what has changed about what we eat? One is fast food is booming, right? So the fast food industry is worth about $19 billion in 2024. It's expected to double by 2033. Apart from that, urbanization, disposable incomes, dual income families. So there's a lot of money and there's not enough time, which means that you have these apps on your phone and it just allows you to order whatever you want, whenever you want. So people are cooking less and less and they're ordering more processed food, fried food, food cooked from outside. How can regulation actually step in? In fact, in July this year, the Supreme Court has directed the Food Safety Standards Authority to consider implementing a front of pack nutrition label with a health star rating perhaps. So that's the current model that is being proposed. So right now, you know that the contents are on the back of these packs. They've been asked to bring to the front of the pack. But even if there is a health star rating, there are those who work in consumer protection who say that it will defeat the purpose because most people in our country aren't able to interpret what that means. There's a language barrier. Not everybody can read English. Even if they can, they don't really know because a lot of the details are hidden. So one of the suggestions by George Cherian of the Consumer Protection Association in an India Today article is black warning symbols like Chile's model. Now the country Chile, and I'm going to do a detour here to explain what this is, right? The country Chile has implemented a black stop sign on food packets. So whether it's your chips or your drinks or your whatever it is, there is a threshold. If, for example, on 100 grams of solid food, at least 10% or more is sugar, there is actually a warning sign on the packet that says this is high in sugar. or this is high in sodium, this is high in fat. And this was a phased implementation that was brought in 2016 up to 2019, where manufacturers were allowed either to bring down the content of sugar or fat or whatever it is in their items, or they had to introduce this black as sort of sign, as you can see, very easy to understand even if you can't read. And the products that actually had that black sign could not market to children under the age of 14. Now, what happened because of this is that there was people understood it better. There was a drop in the sales of products that had that warning sign. Chile became a model for other countries. Argentina, Mexico, Peru, all of them started to introduce the same thing. And there's an argument that maybe that is what we need in India. Now, let's take a look at the samosas versus packaged food debate, right? Does packaged food deserve better labeling in India? One could argue yes, because like I said, it's loaded with trans fats and sugars and sodiums. And as we've seen in the past, there are several cases where the same product will have less sugar and salt if they're selling it in Europe, where regulations are harder, and more in India, the same product, including baby food, if they feel no one in India is actually looking. These are mass produced and they're also mass marketed to seem healthy. So there are breakfast cereals that are high in sugar that seem like they're healthy, or biscuits that seem like they're high fiber when they're actually not. So actually a front of pack warning label would be able to, all of our people would be able to just see that and say, okay, this is not healthy, I should not buy it. But then what about the samosas and the jalebis? There is an argument that a samosa is not actually unhealthy for you, because it's normally made fresh and the ingredients are visible. You know that it is aloo and it is, it is oil and all of the things that go in the samosa. It is the frequency, the portion size and the lifestyle, and not the food itself, that could be harmful. But at the same time, there is the other angle. The thing that worries people in India is about hygiene. And I think that that is largely why people buy more packaged food, because there is an assumption that it is cleaner, not exposed to flies, that the oil being used is not dodgy, or it's not unhygienic in the way it was manufactured and stored, and that is the problem. At the end of the day, there is the cultural sensitivity as well, because you will also be battling the idea of these are Indian foods, these are traditional to India, and so should we actually be slapping a label on them? Especially if they're sold loosely in the market, then where will you put the label at all? Blanket warnings on street food, is that creating a cultural bias, or are we labeling Indian foods as bad? So here's the debate that I promised you at the top of the video, right? Packaged food does need better labeling in India. Should we have the Chilean system of that black spot, so that everybody in India, irrespective of language, can understand what that means? And is that something that we need desperately at this point in order to prevent our children from getting sick as they get older? But at the same time, how do we tackle the problem of street food or Indian sort of traditional snacking food? Is there a way to handle our hygiene problem? Is there a way to handle the type of oil that is used or reused, or the ingredients that are used being fresh and clean? And finally, how do we then tell people that if you're eating a samosa, eat only one samosa over the period of, say, 1 month, or over the period of 2 weeks? It also depends on that one samosa compared to what you're eating for the rest of the day or what the rest of your lifestyle in terms of activity and diet is like. So I'm dropping this down to you now. Do you believe, on one hand, that the first target for the government looking at health should actually be ultra-processed packaged food? Do you believe the Chilean model is a good model and that's something we should actually follow? And in terms of Indian food, do you think the biggest challenge right now is, contents and health, or hygiene and health? And how can that be targeted by our government?